Let's go.
The Celestic Warrior asks, are there any games you bought on launch day? Me buying a game on launch day really depends on how excited I am for the game. If it's a game from a series which I love, like Zelda or Mario or Metal Gear, something I really like, I will pretty much always buy the game on launch day. I'll get it on like pre-order, I'll make sure it's at my door and in my game console cartridge thing. By the time it comes out, it makes me very happy to see those games, and it's just wonderful. Most of the time, I don't actually buy a game on launch day if it's a game which I'm a little bit skeptical about. That's mainly the reason why I don't buy them on launch day. Stuff like Grand Theft Auto 5, which is a game which people like marched around the blocks and camped outside stores for. I don't really buy that because I was a bit skeptical and I don't really give a shit. But it's not too bad, and I'm kind of glad I bought it eventually. Stuff like Skyrim as well, I didn't buy that on launch day, but it just does take me a while to get certain games, but I get to there eventually, I buy them eventually. Bubby Quinn asks, what do you think of the new fairy type Pokemon and Eevee getting an evolution based off this type? Well, when you think back to Generation 2, which was the last time they actually introduced any types, you kind of feel that fairy was a type that needed to be introduced, not so much so you can have creative Pokemon based around it, and you know, they did actually do a very good job with that, but more to balance the game out. And it's very nice to see that Game Freak are actually caring about balancing Pokemon out, because for a start they brought in a type which is immune to dragons, which is crazy. Dragons, before the introduction of fairy type, were just unstoppable. The only Pokemon that could stand a chance against them was ice and steel for two different reasons. But having a fairy type Pokemon is now like a giant blockade to dragon type Pokemon as well, being super effective against them. It's also quite nice that the only Pokemon that are super effective against fairy type are types that aren't used as much, sort of like poison, which is like one of the most underused types in the entire game, and steel, which is just this giant block instead of an offensive force. And it's also nice that because they brought an evolution along with it, there's something that people can actually sort of gravitate towards and think, you know, I'm going to get interested in fairy type Pokemon because I got a brand new evolution, Sylveon I think it's called, I can't remember exactly, and it's got a nice kind of stats. It fills some nice holes in the Eevee stat line, it's got quite good special defenses, and it's just nice to have a very good fairy type Pokemon right from the off. You know, when we had Steel introduced in Generation 2 and Dark to some extent in Generation 2, there wasn't that many Pokemon which you could say, wow, this is a very good representation of what Dark and Steel type Pokemon can do. Remember back to Generation 2, there was what, like Fortress, Scizor, and Skarmory, like the best Steel Pokemon in that generation. That's 3 Pokemon, which isn't terrible, but it's not fantastic either. You've got to remember that with fairy type Pokemon, they brought in fucking Xerneas, which is just insane, absolutely insane. Getting a legendary Pokemon for this brand new type is wonderful, and I'm very glad they did that. E123 Robot Porn asks, what is your opinion on Pokemon Heart Gold? It's kind of funny thinking about it, but Pokemon Heart Gold was a game which I looked at and thought, I don't really want to buy this. It's not as good as the game I remember, because it's a remake of Pokemon Gold back, you know, the year 2000, that was a long time ago. But I always looked at it and thought, what if it's like a very bad showing of what Pokemon Gold used to be? What if it's a disgrace to my favourite Game Boy game? It's gonna be weird. But eventually I did try it, mainly because when I went back to playing Pokemon Gold, it was a case of, well, this is fantastic, and I remember how good Gold was, but Pokemon's moved on, and mechanics have moved on, and it would be nice to see this replicated in the modern day era with, like, crazy nice graphics, and better mechanics, and physical special split and all that sort of thing. And it was nice to finally see all this stuff in Heart Gold. I mean, the Pokemon following me around was quite a nice gimmick. It was, you know, there left over from Yellow. And to be honest, I enjoyed Heart Gold way more than I thought I would, and I'm very glad I eventually did pick it up. Ryan Dragonbane asks, when will the next Q&A be? It's right now, can't you tell? No, seriously. What I try and do is I try and get these videos out about every month or so, but it really does depend of how many questions I have to answer. If I have to sort of go through the comment section on these videos and look, I can't find anything I want to answer, people are going to ask more questions, it becomes harder and harder to actually put out a video like this. So what I need is if you want to like show your support for this video series, you can like give likes and stuff and add it to your favorites or whatever the fucking, you know, generic let's talk about YouTube shit. What would be even better for me is leaving comments saying, oh, ask questions, what is your favorite fucking, I don't know. asking questions is a very good way of supporting this video series, so if you want to do that, you know what you need to do. XX Spear XX94 asks, what do you think of Dark Souls? Every time I kind of mention Dark Souls to someone, like, oh, should I play Dark Souls? They say something along the lines of, holy shit, no, unless you want to ruin your life forever, because I think the general consensus is that Dark Souls is quite difficult, and kind of more difficult than most games out there, and I'm not sure if that's something I want to do, really, to myself, if I want to sit down and play this game, which is really, really hard, apparently, and unforgiving, and horrible, not a bad game, it's apparently a very, very good series of games, but difficult. Unforgiving is probably the better word to describe it, so I think maybe one day when I'm feeling suitably bored and probably masochistic, I may give it a whirl up one afternoon and see what sticks and see what happens after that, because the reputation it's got from me talking to people about it is just catastrophically terrible, but in a good way. It's a good game, but people have just been saying that it's hard as balls, and am I prepared for that? Am I prepared to sit down and play this game which is just going to keep kicking me in the balls consistently 24/7? I'm not sure I am, but maybe one day. A Corndog asks, Brawl or Melee? I mentioned this back in a countdown a while ago, but I always liked Melee more, but it's not so much what Brawl did wrong, it's more what Melee did right. Melee is just a little bit quicker in gameplay, and I find that when you're actually down, I haven't played Melee in a while, so I can't really apply this, but when you're down and ready and fighting proper competitive Melee fighting, it's a lot more fun than Brawl, which is a little bit more casual in a way. I guess it's more of a multiplayer mass. Let's get everybody over here to play some Brawl with you, rather than let's do competitive Melee shit or something. So I guess it's not so bad, but Brawl is just a little bit slower. Tripping's annoying. Can I say tripping is really annoying, so that's pretty bad. And Final Smashes, while kind of cool and flashy and amazing and can turn the tide of battle, do kind of ruin the competitive aspect. You know, I like Fox. Can you tell that Fox Final Destination? No, I'm not one of those people, but Final Smash is very flashy, kind of nice gimmick, but they're a bit annoying. Okay, when people rely on them, that's the annoying thing. On that note, I have played the Project M mod for Brawl, which is absolutely incredible in every single way. I love that. It's the best of both games. It's the character roster from Brawl, which is still gigantic. I don't think it's going to be beaten by the next Smash Bros. Game, but it's just fantastic. You've got the tight controls of Melee as well, and the graphics of Brawl. It's just wonderful. It's fantastic. Terravancer Yacht asks, what are your anticipated 3DS games for this year? For me, there's two massive games that I'm really looking forward to, along with a host of other games which I'll probably pick up eventually, but I'm not as, bated breath. How many days until they come out kind of anticipation? There's two to it. And there's, of course, Super Smash Bros. 4, we haven't really got a name yet, Super Smash Bros. 4 for the 3DS, which isn't just a straight port from the Wii U version, which is fantastic. I am very glad that it's not re-releasing the same game on the 3DS, because have it on multi-platforms, that makes it better. And I do like how there might be some connectivity in it, and also it's coming out sooner than the Wii U version, which is interesting from like a business point of view. Are they going to make more money off of that? Are they going to make people more anticipated for the Wii U version? I don't know, but we get it sooner, which is fantastic. I can put a lot of time into that game, and I will put a lot of time into that game, so if you don't see any videos from me for a little while after that game comes out, you know why, so we'll get to that later. There's also Professor Layton vs Phoenix Wright, which I don't know a lot about, as I'm not really invested in either of those franchises, but the sheer concept is enough to make me think this is going to be pretty good. I know roughly how both franchises work, but to have two slightly different, kind of similar, it's kind of up in the air how similar they are, franchises in the same game with two interesting personalities behind it is going to be a crazy combo, which I just have to buy. It's like an event, you have to buy it just to see what happens, and I'm not sure it's going to be terrible. I'm pretty confident it's not going to be terrible, but I just have to buy it anyway, guys. It's a natural urge, I'll be honest. Axelander 2000 asks, what do you think of Fire Emblem? You might have noticed in all my videos on this countdown, I've almost never mentioned Fire Emblem in any capacity, and that's more down to the fact that I haven't played any games. I have no knowledge of the games, really. Playing through Melee, I, of course, unlocked like Marth and Roy and who are these generic Japanese sword fighting characters? Who the fuck are they? but you look into their backgrounds and you think, oh, Fire Emblem, that's kind of funky, that series which Japan loved, and Europe only got after Melee actually, got some popularity out of the series in the Western world. But what I have done is recently, at least, fairly recently, I've started playing Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones, which is the GBA game, and it's kind of funky. It's got an interesting story to it. It's got more story to it than I thought it would do. I thought it would just be, mostly gameplay. Let's move people around the board and they can kill each other. And I do like the fact that once someone dies from your party, they're gone. Unless you do like a soft reset and start all over again, they are not coming back. It's not, let's take them to the Pokemon Center, let's get this person back up and running. They're gone, and you're getting them back. And it means you have to kind of be a little bit cautionary in how you go about things, and I'd like that. I like that a lot. Rate Games asks, what do you think of the Legend of Zelda timeline? When the Legend of Zelda timeline was finally announced and confirmed and finalized, there were two overriding feelings I had towards it. The first was mostly disbelief that it's finally happened. The Zelda timeline has been confirmed and announced and set in stone by the people who created the thing, so you can't argue with them because they know what they're doing. And the second was a little bit of disappointment because once you actually know what it actually is, what the timeline actually looks like, it does take quite a lot of speculation out of the whole process of trying to work out how does the Zelda timeline fit together, because there's a lot of Zelda games. If you exclude the CDI games, there's like so many Zelda games which you have to fit into a universe of chronological events, and the fact that the official Zelda timeline actually has like branching paths and different scenarios. There's one where it's all around Ocarina of Time for a start, but it's one where Link doesn't defeat Ganon and Hyrule is plunged into a 10,000 years of darkness or whatever it is. The fact that there's a timeline for that makes you realise that no one was going to guess that, no one was going to really establish that timeline. But it does disappoint me a little bit because there's not as much thought and speculation around the timeline anymore, because we know most of it. We know all of it, pretty much. The only thing we don't know is when a new Zelda game comes out, where that's going to go in, and I don't think Nintendo are going to update the timeline every single time they release a Zelda game, so I guess there's that too. We're going to get the Wii U Zelda game whenever the hell that comes out, but I mean, we still don't know where A Link Between Worlds fits into all of this, so I'm not sure about that. There's still a little bit of speculation, but they've kind of just sort of chopped it at Skyward Sword to kind of finalise this chronological events of Zelda. So, a little bit disappointed, kind of surprised to see it there. It's a bit like Santa Claus. As a kid, you're told that Santa Claus is real, and that's fine, and it's wonderful, and you live in this legend of Santa Claus being this incredible being who brings presents. He's such a nice guy, he's got a great beard, and he wears red. Red people who wear red, they are lucky people, and it's a wonderful thing. Well, as you grow older and you realise, spoilers for people who don't know this, Santa Claus isn't real, you start to lose that sort of magical, mystical wonder and speculation that came with it. I've just said speculation like 7 times in this question, but it does kind of let you down a little bit, and it's a teensy bit disappointing. The MagesticRebel asks, do you like more challenging games or more relaxed games? I'd have to put myself in the category of a very average gamer, by which I mean not a bad gamer, but not like, oh my god, MLG gotta go real fast and get speedrun records and, pro, let's not take any damage in Battletoads kind of thing. It's kind of, I like challenging games, but not as long as they're not challenging by being unfair, which is why I'm a little bit skeptical about Dark Souls, so I don't know if anybody's played that game, if they can enlighten me more on that, but I don't know. So it does mean that when I start a new game, on a new, I've never played the game before, I try to go for kind of easy settings so I can enjoy the game for what it is, rather than get angry at the game because it's just very difficult. So what it means is that I do like relaxed games, I like some kind of casual games, I like how they're kind of more creative in a way, but creative in a funny sense. And I do like a challenge, but it really does depend if I've played the game before. If they had like a Super Mario Sunshine hardcore mode, if you die, you're dead forever, which would be very difficult because you die a lot of times in Super Mario Sunshine, or even for example Wind Waker HD when they had the hero mode and taking twice as much damage and no hearts. That was fantastic, that's absolutely fine, that's challenging for me because I've played the game multiple times, but it's fun because it's a challenge on a game which I know well. So it's kind of fair in a way. But speaking generally, I'd have to side with the more relaxed games. Dylan Smith asks, what are your thoughts on the recent newcomers to Super Smash Bros. 4? Having made that video where I announced my preferred characters for the new Smash Bros game, I'm pretty happy with what characters they've got actually. Wii Fit Trainer is a really weird pick, and I'm pretty sure that most people will agree with me on that one, but I do like how much potential the character has got. It's weird sort of going into it, because if you made like a prediction video like I did, you would never have put Wii Fit Trainer on there, because it's not really a character which you would naturally associate with Nintendo and Namco Bandai and trying to fit it into a fighting game, but it does make a lot of sense. On the flip side, you look at someone like Mega Man and you think, why the fuck wasn't he included earlier? In like the first Smash Bros game, I guess it's a contract dispute with Capcom and trying to get his image rights into the game, but he is like one of the most natural characters for a Smash Bros game with all the crap he's got, all the power-ups and that kind of shit. He was just made for Smash Bros. Then there's the Villager, which is another weird one, but then you can't remember that in Brawl we saw the stage, we had the Pitfall item. You realise that there are ties between Animal Crossing and Smash Bros, and you think it's almost a little bit inevitable before a Villager character kind of got in there. Animal Crossing did need a representative in there somewhere, and it's kind of no surprise that they chose your character, the Villager character. Rosalina and Luma, I was a little bit disappointed when I saw them announced, but once you see the trailer I realise actually there's some potential behind them, and they're not just going to be like a Peach clone. That was my fear, that Rosalina would just be the almost clone, like the Space Peach in a way. And it's pretty good that Luma is more than just like a counter. You know, Peach's B is just counter Toad. You attack me and Toad will throw it back at you. It's nice that Luma and Rosalina are actually kind of working side by side. It's a strange combination, like Ice Climbers or something, but interested to see how that works. Then there's Little Mac. Now, I'm very happy that Little Mac got in because I put him second on my Smash Bros list. I'll always stand by the fact that Little Mac is another character who's just made for this kind of game. He is, in his games, a fighter, and you're trying to put him into a fighting game, it just works too well, and you can't exclude him from this, because even though he's not going to be much of an aerial fighter, as they called him, that's fine, because he's on the ground, he's a boxer. Boxers tend to stay on their feet, they don't jump around, they don't fly either, but they just, you know, get on the ground and they punch people, which is fine for a fighting game. And finally there's Greninja, which I was a little bit surprised to see, you know, considering all the Pokemon you can choose, but I guess if you are going to choose one Pokemon from Generation 6, you probably should be picking potentially the most popular one. I like Greninja quite a lot, and I will be using him quite often, and I do like, and this is a kind of personal thing, I like how they announced him with Charizard. I don't know if, you know, Pokemon Trainer with Charizard, Ivysaur and Squirtle is going to come back in any capacity, but having Charizard be revealed on his own was like, oh my god, Charizard! Oh, there's a fucking Charizard in the game, it's amazing! And then later on you see, oh look, Greninja. And I think Greninja kind of stole Charizard's thunder a little bit, which does make me reasonably happy, I'll be honest. Oh, here we go. The F3R3SS6 asks, when you get popular on YouTube, will you leave your job and focus on YouTube? It's time for a little bit of honesty. If there was ever a time that I got popular enough on YouTube that I could do this sustainably as a job and get a bit of money off of it, I would be incomprehensibly happy. I'd be the happiest man in the entire world because I enjoy this so much. I'll tell you what it is. I come home from work and I do this. I do this kind of thing. I sit down, I record videos, I record vocals, I do a bit of editing, all that sort of thing. What happens is once I come home, I'm tired. That's a fact. You know, you've done a full day of work, you are quite tired. What it means is when I have to sit down and say, okay, you're gonna record some Pokemon Gold, fucking do it. Beforehand, I'm kind of like, I just want to go to sleep. Just fuck off and let me go to sleep. But when I'm actually in there, when I'm doing stuff for YouTube, it's absolutely incredible. It's so much fun, and I really can't detract from it that this is incredibly lucky. I'm very lucky to have this. All these people looking at these videos and giving me feedback and talking about them, and it's fantastic. If there's ever a capacity that I could do this sustainably and as a job in a way, which brought in a fair amount of money that I could live off of, that would be incredible. There are no words to describe that. That would be my dream come true in a bottle. It would be incredible. But to be honest, it's not really something you can look for and say, I'm gonna try and get my YouTube up to a situation where I can quit my job, because it doesn't really work like that. So at the moment I'm just gonna keep going and see what happens, and that's all I really can do. But until then, here's hoping.